Hello, welcome to this midweek session. My name's Guy Donegan-Cross. In case we haven't met, I've been at Church of England Birmingham as Director of Learning for Discipleship and Mission for about the last 6 months. I'm married to Ruth, who's hopefully going to be a vicar soon in Birmingham, and I've got 4 children and a dog called Bess. And what I'd like to offer today are 2 questions. And the first is, what are the different stages we can be expecting to go through as we negotiate this pandemic? And the second question is, and I hope you like my highly technical skills here, the second question is, how do we respond to those different stages as disciples? And I hope these few thoughts will both be a resource to you and something that could be comforting in a difficult time and perhaps liberating when we're trying to think about the future. You know, when all this started, I thought, I'm going to make the most of the opportunity in being locked down. I'm going to read the complete works of Shakespeare. I'm going to take up the cello. I'm going to do Couch to 5K. I'm going to eat healthily. I'm going to do all these things. And spiritually, I thought, I'm going to become like a monk. I'm going to do different prayer rhythms. I'm going to read the Bible every day. I'm going to do this, that, and the other. I'm going to take the opportunities that there are in this strange time. But you know what? In the last couple of weeks, I've been feeling a bit like a marathon runner who's hit the wall. Maybe a little bit like this. So I think it's really helpful to acknowledge that there will be different stages to this. And at those different stages, there'll be different questions that we need to be thinking about and wrestling with. But the good news is that God doesn't expect us to be able to answer all those questions at the same time. And there may be questions for now, and there may be questions for later, and there may be questions that some of us have to deal with, but some of us don't. It depends on our situation. And a few weeks ago, at the beginning of this, I read an article which I found really helpful, which set out 3 different stages to the way that we'll experience this lockdown, this pandemic. And I've made a tool which has questions for each of those different stages, which I'll attach to this. And I hope it will be of some use to you in thinking through your discipleship and your response to this situation. So the beginning of the article said that when this first hit, it was a bit like we'd come into a blizzard. And when you're in a house and a blizzard hits, what do? Well, first of all, you button down your hatches, you close your doors, you make sure you've got your food in, you deal with the immediate, you sort out your communications. And in a way, to me, that felt like the beginning of this. That suddenly, almost suddenly anyway, it felt like we had to suddenly adjust. We had to do things in new ways. We had to think about work in new ways. We had to sort out our homes in new ways, our relationships, how we connect with people. And in terms of church, what do? There was this flurry of activity. And in a sense, a bit of a kind of let's get into this, let's get on with it spirit. And of course, we had Lent and Easter to go through as well, which theologically and spiritually makes a lot of sense to what we're going through. Good Friday, Holy Saturday, and Easter Sunday. But that immediate first stage of adapting to a blizzard hitting was what the beginning of this felt like. And in some ways, you may still feel like you're in that phase now. So as I was looking around at what was going on, I just saw an amazing amount of creativity and hard work and love and care going on. And we just have to acknowledge that blizzard phase is pretty exhausting. And we see that in our country as well, don't we? But the second phase they talked about was winter. And winter is when you suddenly realize that this is going to go on longer than you thought. And in many ways, this is how I'm feeling right now. Winter's when you have to bed down. And you have to try and find sustainable ways of being, sustainable ways of walking with God, of walking with others, of walking with your community that will last through this longer time. And it might be that during winter you can start to begin to think about what will it be like when you come out. But actually the main thing is to find a way of being that will carry you through this longer period. But the final phase that the article argued about was when we gradually emerge from our winter, blinking into the sunlight. And what we find when we come out is that the landscape that we knew before just isn't there anymore, because we've entered what they called a mini ice age. Ways of doing things and ways of being things that we relied on before don't actually fit with the way that the world is. And so in this phase, there are new questions about rebuilding. And it might be, as I said, that at the end of winter, we've been able to start to anticipate some of those questions. But actually, until we get there, we're not entirely going to know what we're asking. But there is a call on us, isn't there, as disciples, to be paying attention to where God is at work and seeking to provide hope and a lead to our nation at that stage. I think of Archbishop William Temple at the end of the Second World War, who was able to give that kind of leads to the nation by listening for what God was saying and talking about the kind of society that he believed God might call us to be then. Hey, come on, over here. Come on then. So my brothers and sisters, there's a verse in 1 Chronicles which talks about the sons of Issachar who knew the times and who knew what Israel should do. And so there is a call on us to know the right questions at the right times. And I've created a tool which I've attached to the bottom of this video, which is looking at these 3 seasons of blizzard, winter and mini ice age, and looking at the 3 aspects of the kinds of relationships that we're called to have, of being with God, being with one another and being with our communities, and thinking about the kinds of questions that are right for each of those seasons. I hope they're a real blessing to you. I love those verses in Ecclesiastes which says there is a time for everything, a season for everything. It even says there's a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. May God give you peace in whatever season you are in, enabling you to ask the right questions at the right time and to know that He is with you. In Jesus' name. God bless you and thanks for listening. Say bye, Bess.